Thank you so much and good morning, good afternoon, good evening po sa lahat ng nanonood ng 94th episode of the Stop COVID Deaths webinar series brought to you by the University of the Philippines. Thank you for being part of our credible online community, and to all those who have just discovered us today, welcome po at sana po magustuhan po ninyo ang topic for today and for our succeeding webinars. Vaccination has proven to be an effective tool for controlling COVID-19 cases in the adult population. Though reinfection is still possible, vaccination of adults have reduced the individual risk of complications stemming from COVID-19, as well as its associated possible hospitalization from the disease. It also prevents transmission of the virus in the general population. However, recently, information campaigns po, nagkaroon po ng massive shift for vaccination. We have already tackled the one for our senior citizens. Today, we'll be talking about the pediatric population. Children can benefit from vaccination because they can also get very sick from COVID-19 and can have complications such as multi-system inflammatory syndrome. Literature points to short and long-term complications po from COVID-19 affecting also the children, hindi lang po sa mga matatanda. Unvaccinated children can also contribute to viral transmission. So in today's episode, we will discuss updates on the pediatric vaccination campaign with another excellent panel of distinguished experts from Dr. Raymond Francis Sarmiento, Director of the National Telehealth Center, National Institutes of Health, University of the Philippines, Manila. Always a pleasure to be with all of you, mga ka-Friday po natin, and always looking forward to Fridays and getting to host this webinar with my partner and also our adjunct research faculty from the National Telehealth Center, the Special Envoy of the President for Global Health Initiatives, Dr. Susie Pineda-Mercado. Dr. Susie?
Hi, good afternoon, Raymond. Kamusta po kayong lahat? Very nice to see everyone again. Sorry, I was not able to chat with you earlier. We usually, Raymond, do a little chat with our regular participants. Pasensya na kayo kasi I had to call my mother. Biglang ganon. Anyway, kamusta po kayong lahat? I hope you're all in good health and enjoying relative freedom for those of you who are in the Philippines. Although, Raymond, our topic today is very nice, vaccination of children. Kung mapapansin niyo po, meron tayong campaign kung saan cameo role si Raymond doon, di ba? Parang siyang boses ng doktor. We've been doing this little bit of a campaign for vaccination of children because it's really very important to vaccinate the kids, no? So today, alamin natin ang latest developments. As usual, we have an excellent panel for you. Only the best for our Stop COVID Deaths webinar. But Raymond, before we continue, ako nababahala ako na nag-lockdown yung Shanghai. Nakita mo ba yun, Raymond?
Yeah. At pati rin po yung mga continuing rising cases sa ating mga neighboring countries.
So, it looks like nagsasurge. Pero yun ang tanong natin, Anyway, for our online community, kung meron mang bagong impormasyon, we will bring it to you once we have that information. But just monitoring the news, I'm not sure, Raymond, if it's exactly the same strain as what we had when we just finished our Omicron surge, or it's a different one. But really, they're locking down Shanghai, no? So I think napapanood niyo yan sa TV na talagang lockdown sila, hindi talaga malakas na makalabas ng bahay, no? So sabi ko, at least tayo nakakalabas. Tapos nung nag-loosen up ng konti, nakakalabas na kayo, pati mga seniors natin, pati na rin yung mga bata. Pero yung mga bata, mas maganda kung bakunado sila so that they can all have a more normal life, go to school, and so that the parents won't be so afraid. So stay with us. We've got a great lineup of speakers, and we are going to, I think, really update ourselves on the latest. No, so ito yung magandang mga speaker natin. Mamaya na para medyo suspense. Pero magandang mga speaker natin. Sige, Raymond, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. For those who are also joining us, lalo na po ang mga miyembro ng Philippine Ambulatory Pediatric Association, welcome po. Pati na rin po kung sino man ang mga miyembro po ng Philippine Medical Association who are all watching us for today. Pero po, para po...
Yes. Raymond, sorry.
No problem.
Sabi, no. We want to welcome all the members of PAPA. Philippine Ambulatory, Raymond already said it, and of course the PMA, pati presidente ng PMA kasama natin ngayon. So, stay with us, no? Okay, Raymond, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. We always put out a short video just to put our discussion into context. Ang tinatawag po namin dito ay Person on the Street or POTS interview video. The questions that we have posed mostly circled around paano po ba yung yung pagbabakuna, nangyayari din po ba to sa mga eskwelahan, saan po ba pwede makakuha ng assistance or additional information. Pero po ang katanungan na ibinigay po namin sa aming mga in-interview ay ilang taon na ang mga anak ninyo? How old are your children? How are they? Kumusta na sila? And napabakunahan nyo na ba sila laban sa COVID-19? Have they been vaccinated against COVID-19? Please watch this.
I'm fully vaccinated na po ako. Nagpabakuna ako sa Roses High School dyan, no? Wala naman ako naramdaman, except nga lang pag-uwi ko, inantok agad ako.
Ano po ay nakabakunahan. Po ay hindi po nasaktan. Hindi na ako nakaawa ng COVID.
Isang lalaki, 3 babae, lahat nabakunahan na. Yung unang bakuna nila, medyo nilagnat. Pero mga 1-2 araw lang. Pero okay naman, wala namang
Po, nabakunahan na po ako. Medyo po natakot kasi di po naman ako sanay sa sa pagtuturok po, ganun po. Nung po, ang nangyayari po, nung first vaccine po, nung tinurukan po ako, medyo po sumakit yung balikat ko po. Pero nung kinabukasan po, nawala naman po.
Madaming bawal kasi nga bawal lumabas kung hindi ka fully vaccinated and underage nga. Halos lahat pwede na akong pumasok sa mga mall and kahit underage pwede na since papakita mo lang yung vaccination card mo, okay na.
Po, yung second vaccine ko po, nung una po wala po ako naramdaman. Tapos kinagabihan po nung araw na yun, parang po, nagkalagnat po ako ng unti, linalamig po ako. Tapos kinabukasan po, nawala din po.
Kailangan talaga Takot kasi ako sa karayom. Alam ng mga anak ko yun. Kaya lang wala akong choice kasi lumalabas ako di ba? Alam mo naman yun, may project din ako. So kailangan ako yung bibili ng materyales, ako lahat.
Gusto ko pong mangyari yung bumalik na po yung face-to-face kasi po mas sanay po ako doon.
Well, gusto ko na nga mag-face-to-face since para sa akin hindi effective yung online learning. Since marami namang vaccinated na, tsaka may iba namang optional, pwede nang siguro mag-face-to-face.
Magpabakuna na po para in the future po, baka mag-face-to-face na po, kakailanganin po yung vaccine. Yun po makakatulong po sa atin, madagdagan po yung protection natin laban sa sa virus na lumalaganap ngayon.
Wow! Thank you very much, TVUP. I want to hug these kids, Raymond. They're so cute. And, it's really important that we have the kids vaccinated kasi although it's it has to be informed, the parents need to understand, and the kids need to understand. But I was just reading earlier, Raymond, that yung rates ng mga depression, anxiety sa mga bata, ang taas daw All over the world, it's very high. And we did talk about this last time. But this is one of the reasons why we need to vaccinate the kids para makalabas sila and they feel better, no? Kasi 2 taon na rin nakakulong, no? And speaking of 2 taon, magda-2 taon na tayo, Raymond, ano ba I think our audience doesn't know. Alam niyo po, kami po nila Raymond, nila Direct Gigi, si Rika, everybody who's on this webinar, we have never met each other face to face. Well, Raymond, I did, no? But, so I think 2 years in the making. And as always, as we celebrate our 2nd year anniversary, we would like to remember our frontliners, no? Kasi, this webinar was really meant for all the frontliners out there who don't have time to, really research on everything and can really pick up ideas from these little lectures given by our experts. And past year when we celebrated our 1st anniversary, we gave credit and we remembered our frontline workers who sacrificed their lives in this pandemic. No? And we want to continue to do that. So we are calling on all of you out there who have any friends or family members who passed away because of COVID-19. We are creating the COVID-19 Heroes Memorial, or we have created that. And we want to add, so please send us a high-resolution portrait, full name, date of birth, date of death, and the occupation. So has to be a high-resolution photograph. And yeah, we don't want this anniversary to pass without giving due respect and remembering the sacrifice of those who we lost in the pandemic. Okay, Raymond, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. So it doesn't mean po, no? Although obviously everyone is a bit fatigued, and what with 2 years na po sa COVID, there are silver linings dito po sa ating, especially dito po sa ating online community. We hope to be able to continue to provide you with quality content week in, week out, even after the COVID-19 pandemic. Nalagpasan na po natin ito. And just to reiterate, ang ating po mga Filipino medical frontliners, hindi po natin sila makakalimutan. So we really would want to recognize them and maybe immortalize their selfless contributions po as part of our memorial. Just to let everyone know, our webinar can accommodate up to a maximum of 3,000 participants. So please join us in the Zoom to be able to fully experience the interactive program. However, there are times po kasi na mas madali po makakonect kung sa YouTube po o sa Facebook. And so we will still be scanning and scouring po the comment section for any questions you may have. In parallel, please put in the chat box kung meron po kayong any comments or if you have any questions already prepared in advance, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section. Ito na po ang next part. Marami po nagtatanong, ang ating po bang Certificate of Attendance ay naibigay na po kompleto? Hindi pa po kompleto, at least for webinar number 93. But for the previous 92 webinars po, kinumpleto na po namin. So if you have watched at least 50% of the webinar duration but did not receive any certificate para po dito, we will ask our team again, kasi marami po talaga nag-check. Marami rin po kasi nagme-message din po doon po sa ating email, which is stopcoviddeaths@up.edu.ph, para po sa inyong certificates of attendance. We'd like to everyone to participate din po, no? Lalo na po dito po sa ating mga 660 plus attendees sa Zoom. To participate sa Zoom poll, doon po sa mga gusto pong mag-participate sa Mentimeter, medyo more interactive na gumagalaw po. Okay din po yun. Ang gagawin nyo lang po, especially for the first-timers, please open an internet browser, go to www.menti.com, and then when prompted, you will be asked to input the code 17531114. That's 17531114 for you to be able to participate in our fun quiz. The same questions posed in the Zoom will be the same questions po na makikita po sa Menti. And then finally, ang atin pong format today, very, very simple. Our standard panel discussion format. Speakers will be presenting a set of reactions of people weighing in, sharing their personal experiences, and then a Q&A session. Kung meron man po maimbitahan na mag-join po, mag-ask ng question po nila live to any of our experts po na hindi po natin madaling makuha, so we are very, very grateful for them. Please, sana po paunlakan nyo po kami at you'll be able to ask those questions to our speakers. Dr. Susie?
Okay, thank you so much, Raymond. Excited na yung mga mahilig mag-menti. Sige, maganda yung mga tanong natin. Anyway, let's get started. And let's start with our opening remarks. We have the president of the Philippine Ambulatory Pediatric Association with a message for us. And, she is the chair of the medical training office at Medical City and is a practicing ambulatory pediatrician. Pero ito pong Papa, Philippine Ambulatory Pediatric Association, hindi po lahat sila pediatrician. May mga family med, meron po mga general practitioners. We'd like to welcome all of those who are watching us from Papa, and thank you for joining us today. Okay, so let's have the message from their president, Dr. Edna Sara Clemente-Morada. TVUP, please go ahead.
Good noon, everyone. And if you are from overseas, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever applies. Welcome to the special edition of the Stop COVID Deaths webinar series entitled Bata Bata, BAKUNADO Ka Na Ba? Just recently, I asked my nephew whose son is 6 years old that very question in our title. And to my surprise, the answer was no to the COVID-19 vaccination. He was courageous enough to tell me that he and his wife are scared of the eventuality of this experimental vaccine being injected to their son. I spent a little more time with them in this regular well-child visit, more explanations, more patience, and more empathy. And so all the more, I feel the prick in my heart that webinars such as this should be brought down to the grassroots level, the families where our patients are, where our children are. The parents, grandparents, and caregivers of our children would be the conduit for our children's vaccination. For without their understanding and giving of consent, our children are left in the dark, fending off their protection. To date, most governments are applying the COVID vaccine program for kids. Our government started off with vaccination of our 12 to 17 years old, then now the 5 to 11 years old. Our goal is truly to protect them. Moreover, our desire is for our children not to contribute to viral transmission. The benefit outweighing the cost comes as an easy cliche to think of when we handle patient education. But let us, as healthcare providers, handle this well, whether we are at our homes, clinics, neighborhoods, cafes, or wherever. We, as members of our organization, the Philippine Ambulatory Pediatric Association Incorporated, are one with the organizers of this event in advocating for the best interests of the child. I hope that this webinar, number 94, will achieve its purpose of shedding light why we need to vaccinate our children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Morada. She wanted to join us, but unfortunately, it's coinciding with another event, no? Now, it's a very special day for us.
She's here, Dr. Susie.
Oh,
She's
Dr.
on mute.
Morada is there?
She's on mute lang, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we could
okay.
have her speak a few words po.
Oh, sorry.
Sige. Okay,
I
go ahead.
was sorry, ma'am. I was unmuted pala. So when you said that I was somewhere and I said, "Oh, I have to open my camera," and said, "Hi, hello to everyone in this webinar." Very timely webinar. Thank you po.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you very much. And we will have you on the panel later. So maraming salamat, no? Okay, so
Thank
that's
you, Dr.
Dr.
Diding.
Morada. And then we have another message from very special friend. Ito na, suki na, paborito niyo po. And very, very active during this pandemic. We really like the partnership that we have had with the Philippine Medical Association. And Dr. Benny Atienza has actually been, what should I say, a driving force behind the National Vaccination Days for Children. And we asked him to come and to give us a special message. Pinaunlakan naman niya tayo. So let's welcome Dr. Benny Atienza, President of the Philippine Medical Association. Benny, go ahead.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Suki na po ako at bilang isa ring pediatrician for 27 years at nagbabakuna po for the last 30 years. On behalf of the Philippine Medical Association, national officers, and Board of Governors, would like to congratulate the organizing committee of this 94th webinar entitled Bata Bata, Bakunado Ka Na Ba? Your great contribution to our community is a milestone in the time of pandemic. As our country, the Philippines, is now on alert 1 with one of the lowest number of new cases of COVID-19 in our region. This was attained through the public-private partnership in our effort to vaccinate more than 70 million of our population. One of the agenda of this webinar is to give pediatric vaccination updates and to encourage our children from 5 to 17 years old to be vaccinated. Since January 12, 2021, the Philippine Medical Association is taking part in the following steps in participation in the vaccination program of DOH and IATF. We conducted an information campaign to increase the public awareness as to the need for the vaccination. We assisted vaccination compliance with the government list of priorities. We monitored the effects and adverse reactions of patients already vaccinated. And we reported to the Department of Health whatever adverse reaction, other information gathered by the individual doctors during and after vaccination. On March 2021, the 119 component societies, together with 8 specialty divisions, 94 subspecialties, 39 affiliate societies, supported and participated the national vaccination rollout. On May 27, 2021, the PMA launched sa Bakuna Nagkaisa, PMA-led volunteerism campaign for health professionals that consists of the nurses, medtech, pharmacists, radtech, midwives to help in the vaccination drive. On August 23, 2021, PMA joined the Vaccine Solidarity Movement, and we pledged that we will be in the forefront of the advocacy, aiming increasing the trust and confidence in vaccination even after this pandemic. We'll speak and educate individual families and communities about the value of vaccination. We are proactively participating in the undertaking aimed to improve the vaccine trust, confidence, and coverage. On November 21, 2021, the PMA campaign for the whole family vaccination, which encouraged adolescents 12 to 17 years old to be vaccinated. The Philippine Medical Association is the one who suggested that DOH and IATF NOBOC the National Vaccination Days, which was launched by the President together with the representative of PMA, me, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, local government units, and DOH. And on January 25, 2022, Secretary Galvez announced that the initial rollout and phase implementation of pediatric 5 to 11 years old group began on February 4, 2022. The Philippine Medical Association expresses its full support for the Department of Health and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 in their program providing the COVID-19 vaccines for age 5 to 11 years old, as mentioned by our joint statement of the Philippine Pediatric Society and the Pediatric Infectious Disease of the Philippines. COVID-19 directly affects children. In addition, the pandemic already adversely affected the growth, mental health, learning, and health-seeking behavior of children and their families. Thus, the Philippine Medical Association reiterates the benefits of vaccinating children 5 to 17 years old. The direct benefits include it prevents SARS-CoV-2 infection, which includes protecting against severe disease, hospitalization, severe or long-term complication like the multisystemic inflammatory syndrome of children or MIS-C. Another indirect benefit is to reduce the likelihood of transmission. We'll consider the contribution of children in community transmission. And lastly, partially protecting further disruption of classes and providing safer in-house learning. Thus, the PMA proposed to DOH and IATF NOBOC that COVID-19 vaccine for 5 to 17 years old group can be directly available in pediatric hospital-based clinics to preserve the cold chain. We must strengthen the foundation of the primary healthcare system in our respective community. We must teach our children, our youth, together with their parents, and let them involved in health-related activities like vaccination. Katulad ko po sa clinic, talaga pong ini-encourage ko ang aking mga patient. At nakakatuwa, even yung mga pasyente ko po na may comorbidity, sila pa po ang pupunta sa clinic for their medical certificate. Again, thank you, University of the Philippines and the National Telehealth Center. Mabuhay po ang Philippine Medical Association. Mabuhay po ang National Telehealth Center. PMA, working together as one. Magandang tanghali po sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benny Atienza of the Philippine Medical Association. And, you know, our country is very, very fortunate na si Benny ang presidente ng PMA. Kasi nakikita niyo dun sa, ano niya, no, sa aura niya, na he's able to bring everyone together. And that's really what we need. And I think that's the thing that has helped us get through or get to this point where we are now. So, saludo ako, Benny, always very inspiring to have you here. And napaunlakan mo kami na you're here nga kasi ano, malapit sa puso mo to, no? Hindi pa naman completely tapos na. As you said, there are many other vaccinations that our children need. But really, the role of the Philippine Medical Association in fighting this pandemic has really been top-notch, and it's because of your leadership. So thank you so much, Benny. Okay, so over to you, Raymond.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. Thank you. Just echoing the sentiments of Dr. Susie. Maraming salamat po, Dr. Benny Atienza. Right now, we'll move on po sa ating fun quiz. Maybe we can have both on Zoom and Mentimeter ang ating pong dalawang katanungan. It's a little bit unorthodox kasi po, isa po in English at ang isa po naman po ay in Filipino. But nevertheless, it's understandable, especially for those who are based outside of the Philippines. The first of two questions is as follows po. Which COVID-19 vaccine can be given to children? Is it Pfizer? Is it J&J? Is it Sinovac? Or AstraZeneca? So, hindi po talaga nilista yung mga all of the bakuna na meron po yan. Pero may isa po dyan na talagang malalaman nyo po na tamang kasagutan. Yung po pwede po ibigay sa bata, ha?
Yung mga lumilipat ba yun?
Yung mga pwede pong ibigay sa bata po, ha? Okay, so while we are waiting, I'd like to greet those from Tuaw District Hospital in Cagayan, RSU Cabarroguis in Quirino, the Senate of the Philippines in Pasay City, Corazon Locsin, Montalibano, Memorial in Bacolod, Negros Occidental, the LG of Consolacion in Cebu, Zamboanga City Health Office in Zamboanga del Sur, and all of those that are in the chat po. I don't know if you are unable po to put in sa ating Zoom poll kasi I'm seeing the questions po here, the answers here in the chat, but hopefully you're able to put your answers in the Zoom po or in Mentimeter. Our second question for today ay dapat pa bang pabakunahan ang mga batang nagka-COVID-19 na? So, ang question po is, yung bata, hindi pa nabakunahan, nagka-COVID, and then, kailangan pa po ba rin siyang pagbakunahan? So, ang madali lang po ito, oo, hindi, or ewan. So, yun po ang mga options po natin. Also like to greet those from the National Center for Global Health and Medicine in Japan, from Chonin Hospital in Taipei, Taiwan, the Ministry of Health in Bandar Seri Begawan in Brunei, Nguyen Thai Hoc Clinics in Vietnam, our friend from Algeria, those from Mumbai, India, Lunichi Ali University of Blida 2, obviously is from Nigeria, those from University of Hail in Saudi Arabia, Prince Sultan Military College of Health Sciences in Dammam in Saudi Arabia also, and Qasim University in Buraida in Saudi Arabia, King Saud bin Abdulaziz University for Health Sciences in Jeddah, those from Stockton, California, Burbank, California, Edmonton, Alberta in Canada, and St. Eustatius Auxiliary Home Foundation, Netherlands, Antilles. We will not be closing po muna just yet ang ating pong fun quiz. We are seeing po kasi answers po to the question. So I think they're still very, very much engaged, but I think for some reason they're not able to put it in the Zoom as we move on to our very first presenter.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raymond. And for those of you who have questions, we have the Q&A box. It's just my pleasure to introduce, I would say, when we write the history of this pandemic, she is probably the most effective clinical communicator in this pandemic. And we've had her a couple of times. We bring you only the best speakers. So we would like to introduce someone you've met before. She's been with us a number of times, and yun nga, I hope you agree with me, no, na among the clinicians, she's probably the best communicator we've had. So we would like to welcome Dr. Annalisa Ong-Lim, who is a member of the DOH Technical Advisory Group for Pediatric Infectious Disease, and she is also faculty of the University of the Philippines and the College of Medicine. So let's have Anna. Anna, welcome.
Thank you, Ma'am Susie, for the very kind introduction and the kind words. It's a pleasure to be with the team once again. I really enjoy engaging with this community. Talagang sulit na sulit yung oras natin. Umaabot talaga na lampas 2:00 kasi very engaged ang ating audience. And they really have a lot of questions and very practical ones at that kasi my understanding is we're reaching out to people who are really in the front lines, no? And so ang ating tanong ngayon for today na gusto natin sanang mapag-usapan ng mas maayos ay yung usapin tungkol sa pagbabakuna ng mga bata. Si Dr. Diding started off this discussion with a story, no, that I think many of us can relate to. Kasi I'm sure meron tayong mga kaibigan, kamag-anak na kung kukumustahin natin, sila na mismo magsasabi sa atin na medyo nag-aalangan sila or kinakabahan sila to make that decision about having their kids vaccinated. And maaring nanggagaling ito from many different factors. Pwedeng kakulangan sa kaalaman, pwedeng dala ng takot or kaba. And I hope with this session, we'll be able to take off, no, from what I'll be discussing to explore those topics para pagkatapos itong pag-uusap natin, meron tayong pagkakataon to share our knowledge with the people we come to interact with and really encourage, no, for kids to be vaccinated. So let me get my slides online. And just walk you through the questions that we'd like to answer, which are very simply,
Okay, while Anna's getting that online, sorry, naka-out din pala ako. While Anna's getting her presentation online, no, please use the chat box, the Q&A box for your questions. Nakikita ko na marami kayong mga tanong, no? So we have some experts who are going to, other experts. Oh, Anna, yan na pala. Okay, so
yes.
use the Q&A for all your questions, and we're going to ask our experts actually to try to answer them in the Q&A box. But we'll also save some for the open forum. Okay, Anna, go ahead. Take the floor.
Thank you. Thanks for the save. So we're just going to be going through a couple of very simple questions, no? Kasi I'm sure marami na ring nakakaintindi tungkol sa bakuna sa ating audience. But I just like to make sure that we all are aligned with respect to the answers to these questions. So first, why should children be vaccinated? And then we'll go on to a brief discussion of what has been the progress so far, and then go on to the critical question of what should we watch out for. So I always like to start with this situationer para naiintindihan natin yung context kung nasa saan na tayo ngayon. Globally, hindi pa rin bumababa ang case counts. Actually, parang I would say very blessed tayo sa Pilipinas kasi halos 2 buwan nang mababa yung number of cases natin. And in fact, kung tayo ay nasa PGH, di ba parang nakakapanibago, nag-face-to-face na tayo, nababawasan na yung mga pasyente sa bayanihan ward, nagbubukas na yung ibang mga services natin, and I think that's the situation in the entire country. Pero alam ba ninyo na globally, no, medyo matindi pa ang tama talaga ng COVID. Over 1 million cases are still being registered daily, so that we have over 476 million cases registered to date with over 6 million deaths. And kung titignan natin ang global map, no, so this one is cumulative, medyo ang kulay natin nasa dark range, no. Tayo ay tinatawag na medyo we have a high incidence. And this is very understandable kasi siguro yung isang unique factor sa Pilipinas is the fact that
we never really closed our borders totally. Tumatanggap pa rin tayo ng ating mga kababayang bumabalik sa Pilipinas. And syempre, hindi maiiwasan na kahit na maingat tayo doon sa tinatawag na four-door strategy, at tinetest at kina-quarantine natin yung mga umuuwi, meron pa ring mag-false negative sa testing. And yung iba naman, napalitaan din natin, hindi sumunod sa tamang quarantine and naging daan sila sa pagkalat ng sakit sa ating bansa. If you look at the Philippine data, we now have 3.6 million cases. And unfortunately, we also had quite a number of deaths. Si Dr. Susie mentioned that one of the reasons why this Stop COVID webinar was really put up was to try to address healthcare worker needs at the very start of the pandemic, where we had so many colleagues who got sick or died, and we wanted to make a difference in terms of that particular issue. So marami dito sa mga nangamatay ay kakilala natin, kaibigan, kapamilya, katrabaho, and hanggang ngayon goal pa rin natin na mapigilan itong mga kaso at mga namamatay. If we look at the graph showed in the bottom part of the slide, you will see that we are currently at the down or at the tail of a very huge peak, but this followed initially a surge in September of last year that was eventually attributed to the spread of the Delta variant of concern. Siyempre, pagkatapos niyan, inaabot din ng konting panahon bago bumababa ang kaso, karaniwan mga 2 hanggang 3 buwan yan bago nagno-normalize. And by God's grace, ang pagbaba ng kaso talagang sumabay dun sa Christmas holidays. And kung isipin natin whether may surge or wala, talagang magkikita-kita ang mga tao over Christmas, lalo na nitong nakaraang taon, 2 taon na tayong hindi nagkukumpul-kumpul, and really it was very hard to get people to stop getting together. But in any case, nangyari, okay lang sana kung kakaunti lang yung uptick, pero ang problema, sumabay siya sa introduction ng Omicron, which then really drove these cases to the point where we were dealing with hundreds and thousands of cases on a weekly basis. Siguro ang kagandahan na lang nito is Omicron relatively was less severe compared to the previous VOCs. If we look at the demographic data, you will see that most of the cases are really clustered around the more mobile working population. So between 20 to 59 years old, and most of the deaths are clustered around our more senior members of the population, who presumably will also represent the ones who have most comorbidities. Ang pag-uusapan kasi talaga natin ay mga bata, so we're interested to find out what happens to kids, and you will see here that the cases are really quite low, and the deaths as well. So overall, about 11% of cases and about 2% of the deaths belong to the pediatric age group. So kung sinasabi natin na ang ating motivation to vaccinate is to prevent severe and critical disease and to decrease the risk of death, kung titignan natin yung global data, syempre maraming kaso. Kung titignan natin ang local data, syempre maraming kaso. But if we break it down, parang teka lang, ang konti lang naman ng mga bata na nagkakasakit o namamatay. So bakit natin sila kailangan bakunahan? May mababago ba kung idinagdag natin dun sa mga binabakunahan natin? So this table shows us some reasons why we would encourage vaccination. Siyempre, unang-una na yung individual protection. We know that the vaccines are quite effective in protecting against severe and critical disease and death regardless of the age group. Meron ding evidence ngayon na lumalabas na meron siyang impact on transmission. And ngayon na nakikilala na natin na merong mga complications na lumalabas pagkatapos magkasakit, gusto rin natin na maiwasan itong mga komplikasyon na ito by providing the different age groups with vaccination. So in adults, typically ang iniiwasan natin ay yung mga sequelae ng matinding COVID. So may mga kilala tayo or meron tayong mga naging pasyente na pagkatapos sila magka-COVID, ay hindi na talaga bumalik sa normal ang kanilang health status. Kung titignan natin ang global data, you will see in the literature that there is a high risk of mortality even post-discharge coming from sequelae of COVID. We also know that there is documentation of the phenomenon called long COVID, which is increasingly being recognized as a complication of the disease. There are also now studies coming out about the impact of COVID on neurocognitive functions, no? Which are only now being recognized. Sa mga bata, ang problema na dinadala ng COVID ay yung tinatawag na MIS-C. And this is recognized even among kids who had mild or asymptomatic infections. So, hindi kailangang maging severe ang pinagdaanan ng COVID para magkaroon ng MIS-C anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks down the road. And so, protection against the health impact of COVID is a primary reason for pushing vaccination for all age groups, including children. Pero para sa mga bata, mahalaga din yung epekto ng COVID with respect to their development in as individuals. So nakita natin na isa ang Pilipinas sa mga bansang pinakamatagal ang panahon ng school closures, and we actually ended our last school year na face-to-face noong March of 2020, at nito lang November of 2021 nagsimulang mag-pilot for about 100 schools, 5,000 students, and this is a drop in the bucket when you think about the number of the school-going population, which is 27 million. So, nito pa lang tayo nagsimula ng pagpasok na banggit kanina ng ating mga speakers na malaking problema ang mental health, and isa ito sa mga pwedeng sagutin ng pagbabakuna ng mga bata na mabibigyan sila ng pagkakataon to become more mobile, and the indirect impacts of societal closure can also be addressed by providing kids with protection should they be allowed to become more mobile. Ang isa pang kailangan nating isipin is that every age group has a contribution to the return to pre-pandemic activity and economic stability. And even as we keep the health considerations in the forefront, we have to also remember that COVID did not only place an impact or place an impact on health, but also on all aspects of our community life, including economic activity. So, sa Pilipinas, meron tayong sistema para masubaybayan, no, ang mga bakunang ipinapasok natin sa ating national program. And matapos mabigyan ng emergency use authorization ng Philippine FDA ang bakunang nag-a-apply para maisama sa programa, sumusunod ang HTAC to evaluate whether this vaccine is going to be beneficial to society should the programs choose to procure it. And base dun sa ating HTAC evaluation, there is a recommendation, a positive recommendation for DOH to implement a vaccination program for the adolescent population. This covers the 12 to 17-year-old age group, at ang kanilang mga bakunang aprobado para isama sa ating programa ay yung tinatawag na mRNA vaccines, which include Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Para naman sa mga younger populations, aged 5 to 11 years old, iisa pa lamang or rather there are two vaccines that have been granted EUAs, which is the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Sinovac. I'd like to specify, of course, that Sinovac starts their EUA at 6 years old, hindi sakop yung 5 years old. Pero nag-iisa pa lamang yung may positive recommendation galing sa HTAC, which is the Pfizer, BioNTech vaccine. Sa ngayon, pinag-aaralan pa rin or patuloy pa rin pinag-aaralan ng HTAC kung they will come up with a positive recommendation for Sinovac implementation. So ano ba yung pinagmulan ng mga rekomendasyon na to ng FDA and HTAC. We will be going through a couple of studies looking at efficacy and effectiveness. Pero before we start on those discussions, I'd like to review once again with you ano ba pinagkaiba ng efficacy and effectiveness. Hindi kasi yan magkatulad kahit na magkatunog yung mga salita. When we talk about efficacy, this refers to how the vaccine performs in controlled clinical trials. This is ideal conditions. Pwede mong piliin kung sino yung mga pasyente, ano ang kanilang characteristics, kailan mo sila susubaybayan, ano ang gagawin mo sa kanilang mga test procedures, ano ang babantayan mo sa kanila. And syempre, dito talaga nagsisimula ang lahat ng mga bakuna. Gusto natin maganda ang safety and efficacy data. Unang-una pa rin ang safety kasi kahit efficacious, kahit maganda ang performance sa clinical trials, kung hindi ligtas ang bakuna, wala yang pakinabang sa atin. So safety and efficacy data come first. Then eventually, as the vaccines are used in wider settings in the community, in the real world, you get to generate the effectiveness data. Now, karaniwan, bago mabigyan ng EUA ang isang bakuna, whether it is for the adult or the pediatric population, kailangan mag-submit ng efficacy data ang manufacturer. Karaniwan nakukuha ito sa mga phase 2, phase 3 trials. And dahil nga sa sitwasyon natin ngayon na meron tayong pandemya at kinakailangan nating ma-access kaagad yung mga bakuna, kahit na ongoing pa lang yung phase 3 trials, tinatapos pa lamang siya, nakita natin na maganda ang visa at safety record nitong mga bakunang to, and therefore binigyan na ng tinatawag na emergency use authorization. So dahil matapos noon, ginamit siya ng mga iba't ibang programa, nagkaroon naman ng effectiveness data that typically supports also the good efficacy and safety results that we already got from the controlled trials. So, when we look at the efficacy data, the safety and efficacy data that supported the EUA for particularly the mRNA vaccine, so I'm referring specifically to Pfizer, maganda naman yung mga information na nakuha natin. So, for the adolescent population, this is 12 to 15, the Pfizer mRNA vaccine showed a favorable safety and side effect profile with mainly transient mild to moderate reactogenicity. So karaniwan, ang inire-report ay injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. So tulad ng mga kabataan na narinig natin kanina sa interview, si Sanders, si Miguel, si Lois, sabi nila, di ba, konting sakit, inantok sila matapos. Yung isa yata, I can't remember if it was Miguel or Sanders, sinabi nila, nilagnat siya, matapos mabakunahan the following day. So typically, ganun lang. It's not very different from what we adults experience when we were also vaccinated with these mRNA vaccines. Now, ito yung safety or reactogenicity profile. Ano naman yung immunogenicity or yung capacity to produce a protective response? Sabi ng mga pag-aaral, the geometric mean ratio of neutralizing titers after dose 2 for the 12 to 15-year-olds was actually higher, 1.76, compared to that of the 16 to 25-year-old participants. So kung ikukumpara natin yung antibody response ng mga bata, kumpara dun sa mga adults, na parehong 30 microgram dose ang tinanggap, mas maganda pa ang response nitong 12 to 25, rather the 12 to 15-year-old population. And the safety record was quite good because dun sa kanilang binantayan, na magkakaroon ng sakit after nabakunahan, no COVID cases were identified in the vaccinated group, but 16 cases occurred among the placebo recipients. So ito yung pinagbabasihan na sinasabing efficacy was 100%, no? So let me just put this all into context. This is a clinical trial setting. Ang ginawa nila matapos makatanggap ng ikalawang dose yung mga pasyente, tinignan nila kung ilan na magkakaroon ng sakit. May predetermined cut-off. Kung umabot na ng mga about 100 or so cases, ina-unblind na yan. At tinitignan kung sino yung natamaan, yun ba ay bakunado o hindi. And dito sa dataset na to, nakita nila lahat ng mga natamaan ay hindi bakunado. Kaya pwede nilang ikalkula na ang vaccine efficacy is 100%. Alam natin, syempre, in real life, mas may variation ito dahil iba-iba na ang mga pasyenteng tumatanggap ng bakuna, pwedeng maiba yung mga schedules ng pagtanggap, pwedeng iba-iba ang kanilang mga health status, pero as I will show you later in the effectiveness data, makikita pa rin natin na maganda ang safety and effectiveness. Hindi lamang efficacy, kundi effectiveness or real-world protection. Now, looking at the 5 to 11-year-old age group, makikita natin na maganda rin ang resulta ng safety and efficacy. So, anong ginawa nila dito sa trial na ito? Nag-imbita sila ng 5 to 11-year-old participants. Ang tinanggap ng mga batang ito ay 1/3 lamang ng dose na tinatanggap ng 12 to older. Dahil ito yung naging resulta ng tinatawag na dose finding or dose ranging studies na magiging mabisa para sa age group na ito. 10 micrograms ang laman ng bakuna for 5 to 11 years old. Those 12 and up receive a 30 microgram dose. They saw that based on the neutralization assays, the 5 to 11-year-old participants also had very good geometric mean titers, no? So their seroconversion was very good. Nag-react sila ng maayos dun sa bakuna at kanilang antibody levels ay katumbas ng mga 16 to 25-year-olds, which is our standard population. Nakita rin nila na mas marami dun sa mga hindi na bakunahan ang nagkaroon ng sakit. So in comparison to just 3 out of 1450 participants who were vaccinated who got sick, 16 of their 736 placebo recipients got COVID after they received the second dose. So therefore, the conclusion here is that COVID vaccination for the pediatric age group 5 to 11-year-old was found to be safe, immunogenic, and efficacious. So, sabi natin, maganda ang efficacy data, pero totoo bang maganda rin ang effectiveness data? Ano pa nangyari nung ginamit na natin ito sa larger population? So, this data set comes from the US, and they were looking at the adolescent population who received 2 doses of COVID vaccine. Again, the mRNA vaccine is the only one that has an EUA for this age group. So this is particularly, again, the Pfizer data. And you will see that yung effectiveness o yung bisa niya laban sa hospitalization, so this is a real-life outcome, was comparable for the 16 to 18 and the 12 to 15-year-old age group. Yung need for ICU or life support was also very good, no? Kung titignan natin, comparable din siya dun sa older population. And if you will look at the rate of ICU admissions, napakababa nung mga admissions dun sa bakunado kumpara dun sa unvaccinated. And therefore, the conclusion was, if you look at the 12 to 18-year-old age group, 2 doses of the vaccine were highly effective in reducing hospitalization and critical illness in this population. So this is real-life data observing what's happening to kids who are being admitted to the hospital. Paano naman dun sa 5 to 11-year-old age range? Tandaan natin na itong 5 to 11-year-old approval is really very recent. Sa Pilipinas, nitong mga nakaraang buwan, halos nakaraang 2 buwan lamang natin siya na-roll out ng maayos. And even in the US, this just was rolled out late last year. So we're just still starting to get the data. And they looked at the impact of 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine on Omicron. They saw that may pakinabang siya, no? For the 5 to 11-year-old age range, the rate is about 31% among children in this age group and 59% among persons 12 to 15 years. So let me just put this once again into context. Tandaan natin na si Omicron medyo kakaibang variant itong lumitaw na ito. Magaling siyang lumusot sa ating immune system. Meron siyang capacity to have immune escape, no? And karamihan naman kasi din sa atin by the time na umikot si Omicron ay nakalampas na ng 6 na buwan from the time we were vaccinated. So maaring ito yung dahilan kung bakit medyo mababa kumpara dun sa clinical trial data yung nakikita nating protection. Isa pang kailangan i-highlight is that this is transmission of infection, or rather this is infection across all different types, no? So whether this was mild, moderate, severe, or symptomatic, ito yung number na kino-quote. We have to realize that when you're talking about a subset of severe and critical disease and death, the numbers are still very, very respectable. Maganda ang nakikita nating resulta among all age groups. So, kung meron naman tayong magandang ebidensya para suportahan ang programa ng pagbabakuna para sa mga bata, ano na ang nangyayari sa atin sa ngayon? So I'd like to thank Dr. Raymond for sharing his access to this data. And if you will look at this table coming from the DOH, you will see that we've already administered, or the program has already administered, over 140 million doses. And out of the 239 million doses that are available in the country, over 180 million have already been deployed. So I think this is very, very encouraging for a program that only started in March of 2021. So mag-iisang taon pa lang tayo sa bakunahan natin, and yet ang laki na ng nakocover nating population. And if you will also consider the fact na tayo ay halos, ang pumapasok sa isip ko na malimos di ba? Kasi talagang by the time that we were accessing doses, marami nang nauna sa atin, and we had to make do with whatever was left behind. Mas malaking or maganda na ang takbo ng problema natin ngayon. No? Hindi na dahil kulang ang doses available, kung hindi, paano natin siya i-download efficiently. Kasi titignan natin na almost 240 million doses ang meron natin sa Pilipinas, 180 million pa lamang ang nade-deploy, at 140 plus million pa lamang ang naituturok. So marami pang pwedeng ibigay at marami pang pwedeng pagbigyan. Ang ating data will also show that karamihan ng mga naiturok ng bakuna ay nakafocus dito sa NCR+, no? If you combine the population of NCR, Region 3 and Region 4A, makes up about 38.7 million based on the most recent Philippine census. Pero do you realize that out of the total distributed, 45.8% ang naibagsak dito sa mga areas na ito. So kumbaga, saturated or maganda naman ang coverage natin dito sa mga NCR plus areas, pero that should also tell us na medyo mababa ang coverage ng ating remaining areas or regions in the Philippines. So now I'd like to show you the breakdown per priority group. So alam natin na yung A subgroup talaga ang tina-target natin. Kasama na dito yung mga frontline healthcare workers with comorbidities, our seniors. Meron tayong tinatawag na pediatric A3, which is the pediatric population with comorbidities. And unfortunately, medyo mababa pa rin ang coverage natin dito. So kailangan pa natin itong pagpursigiduhin. If you will look at the age groups, rather the coverage per age group for well individuals, medyo maganda-ganda na yung coverage natin for 12 to 17. Umaabot na halos ng 80% yung nakokompleto nating 2 doses. Pero ang ating 5 to 11 dahil nagsisimula pa lamang barely 10%, no? So not even 10% yung nako-cover natin as fully vaccinated. So once again, this shows us how much more work we need to do. So aside from understanding the need for vaccination and understanding our targets, marami kasi ang nagdadalawang isip o merong mga nagdadalawang isip kasi kinakabahan sila about the potential for adverse events following immunization. So it will be good to understand what should we be watching out for. This latest data coming from the NBOC shows us that out of the 140 plus million doses that have been provided in the country, katingi lang talaga yung nakikita nating AEFI reports. So, hindi man lang siya aabot ng 25,000 reports out of 140 million doses. Lalong-lalo na kung titignan natin yung pediatric population, no, napakakonti ng ating AEFI reports. So if you put this together, that's about 3,800 reports. Karamihan ay non-serious. May kakaunting serious. At kung titignan natin yung breakdown ng serious, karaniwan ay nao-hospital sila dahil dun sa mga dizziness, fever, increased blood pressure, and so on and so forth. No? So, ito ay mga tinatawag na causally related pero only needing minimal support should they have been hospitalized. Sa atin namang mga 5 to 11-year-olds, over 500 reports have been received. 20 have been tagged as serious with 12 hospitalizations. And most of the reactions have been, or most of the serious reactions have needed hospitalization because of allergies and one case of GBS. So siguro before I leave this topic, siguro I'd like to talk a little bit about causality assessment kasi madaling pagbintangan ng bakuna. Pag sasabihin natin ay may naramdaman ka after vaccination, halos automatic iniisip ng mga tao na dala yan ng pagbabakuna. Pero we have to understand that not everything that happens after vaccination is caused by the vaccine. May mga pagkakataon na napapasabay lang, no, coincidental rather than causal, and it requires a lot of evaluation, no, to be able to assign causality relationship to a vaccine and say na yun talaga yung pinagmulan ng problema. I like using a very exaggerated example to bring home the point. And maybe what we'd like to do as a result of this webinar, napakarami po nating participants, baka pwede nating gawin maya-maya si Doc Raymond magpaparaffle. And sasabihin niya, sige, dahil napakarami nating mga suki na nag-a-attend ng ating webinar, ang gagawin natin pagkatapos nito, pupuntahan ni Doc Raymond, magbibitbit siya ng team at pupuntahan niya sa bahay itong mga nanalo at doon na siya magbabakuna. Home service, hindi na kailangan pumila pa yung pasyente. And habang siya naman ay nag-o-observe after vaccination, nakita niya na ba, unti-unti na lang nagbago ang kulay ng buhok ng kanyang binakunahang pasyente. So syempre sa kanyang isip, sabihin niya ba, kaiba naman ito, no? Pero you would not even think to attribute that change in hair color to the vaccination. Kasi ano ba naman ang relasyon nun? Pero dahil very generous si Doc Raymond, 10 ang kanyang pinaraffle at 10 ang pinuntahan niya. Aba, lahat pala nung 10 binakunahan niya, nagbago yung kulay. So pagka ganoon na, medyo iisipin mo na, sandali lang, baka may causal relationship. Hindi lang nakakatulong para makaiwas sa sakit, meron pang free hair coloring pag binakunahan natin using this brand. So that happens, no? Meron talagang mga pagkakataon na dahil inobserbahan na natin sa dami ng mga nabakunahan, dun pa lamang natin nakikita itong mga very rare side effects of change in hair color. Or in pediatrics, ang naobserbahan natin ay yung myocarditis. Pero dahil meron nga tayong sistema that captures all of this information, nakikita natin ito at nabibigyan natin ng advice itong mga risk populations who need to watch out for these problems. So, kahit na binanggit ko kanina na maganda ang safety record, dahil maliit lang yung population na ito, yung ating very rare side effects, very rare adverse events have not been picked up. And only over time and more doses were adverse events following immunization, such as myocarditis or TTS, or what they call thrombocytopenic thrombotic syndrome, no, or the blood clotting syndrome associated with the vector vaccines. These were picked up. And that's really because we have a system to pick these up. So in the Philippines, ano na ba nakita natin? Meron tayong mga nagsisimulang reports about myocarditis. And as of now, no, ang ating number is about 11 cases with 2 cases of pericarditis. Again, this is in the context of ano nga ba yung denominator natin kanina? Hundreds and thousands of doses. Kaya sinasabi natin, this is a very, very rare event. Looking at other countries, pareho ang kanilang data. In the UK, pagka nagkasakit ka ng COVID, you have 40 per million cases who will eventually end up with myocarditis. Kung pinakunahan ka, your chances of getting myocarditis after being vaccinated can range anywhere from 1 to 10 depending on the type of vaccine you got and whether it is the first or second dose. Pero kung titignan natin yung 12 to 17-year-old males, ano ba risk nila na mag-develop ng myocarditis matapos magka-COVID? 450 cases per million infections. Pero kung nabakunahan ka, ang risk ng myocarditis is 77 cases per million in the same age group. So it is 1/6 of the risk of getting the same problem after you get vaccinated. In the US, you have similar data. Actual disease can provide risks of death, sequelae, and other complications. But typically, you only expect anywhere from 2 to 70 myocarditis cases per million second doses. So napaka-rare na adverse event and makikita natin to for specific groups. And of course, we see this as a balance between risk and benefit. So I hope I've given you information that will help you communicate with your audiences, communicate with the people that you care for about why kids should be vaccinated. Gusto nating mabigyan sila ng proteksyon and gusto rin nating mabigyan sila ng paraan to move about normally in the community. Marami ng bakuna, marami ng nabigyan ng bakuna at maganda ang ating safety record. Pero dahil alam na natin na merong mga adverse events following immunization, meron tayong sistema ngayon para mabantayan ang ating mga kabataan na sana naman ay ating ma-encourage na magpabakuna. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Dr. Anna Ong-Lim, no? Talagang galing talaga ni Anna, no? Parang kung gusto niyong panoorin ulit, you can watch the playback, no? Kasi I think tama ka, Anna, no? The challenge is for the frontliners na ito, mga audience natin, no? They actually have to explain to patients. So, maganda yung mga binigay ni Anna ng mga ng mga reasons kung bakit ito safe at saka bakit siya effective. So, thanks so much, Anna, and I think you'll see how our audience appreciates your excellent presentation. Salamat. And I think we'll have, if you have some time, you can take a look at the Q&A box and answer some of the questions if you're not that busy before we go into Q&A. Okay, let's, Raymond, over to you for our next speaker. Mahusay din po ang susunod na speaker natin. Raymond,
thank you, Dr. Susie. Thank you. I actually appreciated the very out there na example ni Ma'am Anna.
Galing. Ikaw yung respond, ha? Pag nakakita ka nagbabago ang kulay ng buhok. Nice, very good example, di ba? Oh, nice. Sige, Raymond, go ahead.
Thank you so much. For our next speaker naman po, she will be talking about, it's more really on the COVID-19 vaccination pediatric population, but from a different perspective. Her role is as head of the Pediatric Hematology-Oncology section po at the Philippine General Hospital. Matagal na po natin siyang nakasama and we're very lucky to have her again on the webinar. So please welcome back to the webinar si Dr. Patricia Alcasabas.
Hello, good morning. Good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. Sir Raymond, Susie, salamat po sa pag-imbita ulit and congratulations Ma'am Anna, ang ganda-ganda po ng inyong talk. So ang gusto ko, ang reaction ko po ngayon dito po sa topic ay ipakita naman po sa inyo bakit napaka-importante po na bakunahan po ang mga batang may cancer. And being a pediatric oncologist po, ito po ang aking advocacy na ang 5,200 children, Filipino children who get cancer each year ay mabakunahan po natin para maprotektahan po sila. So, next slide please. Okay. So, gusto ko pong sabihin na sa simula pa lang ho ng pandemic, pinapakita po na ang mga bata po na may underlying comorbidities po ang unang natatamaan po ng COVID. In this systematic review po of 7,780 children, makikita po na 35% ay may comorbidity at yung may mga immunosuppressed state, previous slide po, at yung may mga including cancer at hematologic illnesses po, ang pinakamarami. Pareho rin po ito ng nakikita natin sa data po natin locally dun po sa Salvation Registry ng Philippine Pediatric Society, wherein dun sa 559 children na na-register nila from 2020 to 2021, na pinakamarami po doon, 30% ang may comorbidity, ang pinakamarami doon ay top 1 ay ang may cancer. Next slide po. So, ang mga bata pong may cancer, so sila na po yung unang tinatamaan at maliban po doon, ang COVID po nila ay mas malala. So, dito po meron pong ongoing po ngayon sa mundo na registry ng mga childhood cancer patients. As of last night or the other day, 1,500 na po natala from 51 countries. At makikita niyo po rito na 72% asymptomatic, mild, moderate, pero 10.7% of 1,500 po ay severe, meaning kailangan po nila ng higher level of care at mas marami pong oxygen support. And then 7.5% naman po sa kanila ang nai-intubate. In contrast po, sa systematic review na naman po ng mga batang walang cancer, 0.7% lang po ang na-intubate po sa kanila o na-ICU. The next slide po. So, kaya po, ang mga batang may cancer at COVID po, mas malaki po ang chance nila na mamatay, no, dahil sa COVID. So dito rin po sa registry na to, 3.6% po ang sa kanila po ang pumanaw dahil sa COVID. I-compare na naman po natin sa mga batang walang cancer sa international data set po of systematic reviews, no, 4,400 plus children, 0.1% lang ang namatay. Pero po, kumpara nyo naman ang mga batang may cancer sa mga matatandang may cancer, unfortunately po, mas halos triple po ang death rate po ng mga adult cancer patients. Next slide. Thank you. So gusto ko pong ipakita dito, ano naman po experience po namin dito sa PGH. So si Dr. Faustine Ong, ang aming pong graduate po, at tiningnan niya po ang data from March 2020 to March 2021. At nakita po na may 40 cases po kami ng COVID. Makikita po dito na 82% may cancer, 40% leukemia, 42% solid tumor po tulad ng brain tumor, bone cancer, and then may benign hematologic illness po yung 18% tulad po ng ITP, may G6PD, ganun po. Doon po sa 40 po na to, marami po dito ang nagki-chemotherapy, 32 patients. Next slide. Thank you. So gusto ko pong ipakita na tulad po dun sa international experience, makikita po nyo na 5% po ng pasyente po namin ng severe at 3% po ay critical na na-intubate. Pero dahil sa teamwork po namin dito sa PGH, dahil po may COVID protocol po kami na maayos, wala naman pong namatay sa COVID. May namatay po, pero dahil po sa cancer. At ito po yung mga gamot na binigay po namin. Next slide. Thank you. Pero ang gusto ko rin nung pakita dito, hindi po sila pumanaw sa COVID, pero ang laki po ng impact ng COVID po sa amin. Kasi po, 2 pasyente lang dun sa 32 na may cancer, ang natuloy-tuloy ang gamutan. Naputol po ang chemotherapy ng 30 pasyente at ang interruption po lasted from 24 to 35 days mean. Next slide, please. So maliban po sa mga batang may cancer, yung mga cancer survivors din po ay at risk for severe COVID. Bakit naman? Kasi po, marami po sa kanila ang nagkaroon na po ng tinatawag natin therapy-related late effects. So yung mga naapektuhan po ang mga organs po nila dahil sa chemotherapy or dahil sa radiation or sa surgery. Halimbawa, may mga pasyente po tayo na nabigay po ng anthracyclines na nakakaapekto po ng puso at nagkakaroon po sila ng myocarditis or cardiomyopathy or heart failure pagdating po nila ng 20 o 30. Meron din po tayo na nagkaroon po ng blockage sa heart or coronary artery disease, previous slide po, dahil po sa radiation. May mga pasyente din po na nagkaroon ng scar sa lung dahil po sa chemotherapy like bleomycin radiation. At may mga pasyente po tayo na yun pong na-transplant, lalo na ho may side effect po sa chemotherapy. Yun pong mga yun, lagi po silang may medicines to bring down their immune system, no? So, madali po silang tamaan ng COVID at maging severe. Next slide po. Thank you. So, napaka-importante po na dito po sa 5,200 patients each year na Filipino mga bata na magkaka-cancer, adolescent, and children, na sana po ay bigyan po natin sila talaga ng COVID-19 vaccination. Paano nga ba ibigay? Ito ho, personalized po talaga ang pagbibigay ng bakuna. So kung pupunta ho si Dr. Raymond yon, kasama rin si Dr. Raymond, very personal, no? So kailangan po natin konsultahan po yung ating oncologist, hematologist, so ating ibang physicians para po sa tamang timing. Bakit? So bibigyan mo natin yung mga nagkikimo at yung cancer survivors. Yung cancer survivors po, check up, titingnan kung kakayanin po, no? Pero yung nagkikimo po, unang-una, halimbawa po, kaka-diagnose lang niya na may cancer, malaki po yung kanyang paa dahil may cancer siya sa buto. Pwede po siyang bakunahan bago siya mag-chemo kasi alam niyo po, binabiopsy pa po sila, papadala pa po ng specimen for precise pathology reading, tapos titingnan pa ho kung pumalat sa katawan, may CT scan, may MRI. So pwede pong magbakuna bago mag-chemo. Pero po, yung pinaka-common na cancer sa bata, yung leukemia, hindi po yan pwedeng bakunahan sa simula. Kasi dahil po, marami po silang dinadaanan. Ibig ko po sabihin, nagdudugo po yung iba po may lagnat. Tsaka dahil po dun sa nature ng sakit na leukemia, wala po talaga silang capacity to mount an immune response pagbibigyan po ng bakuna. So, priority po sa kanila ay gamutan at pwede po silang bakunahan at the later part of their therapy. Now, what about those patients na nagkikimo na? Kailangan po natin hintayin na malampasan na po nila at makarecover po sila dun sa cycle nila ng chemotherapy. Para po hindi po magkapatong yung kung may rare side effect po yung bakuna, hindi po siya makakapatong o mag-overlap with the side effect po ng chemotherapy. Pangalawa, syempre gusto natin mag-recover din muna yung immune system from the chemotherapy. Yung CBC po nila, dapat maganda na po yung lymphocyte count. At ito po mga batang to, mas maganda po ang response nila sa bakuna pag wala akong steroids at walang infection. Kaya personalized po ang babakuna po sa mga batang may cancer. Kailangan muna nilang kausapin, konsultahin ang kanila pong oncologist, hematologist, or kanilang mga doktor. Next slide po. So nabanggit po ni Ma'am Ana po yung myocarditis na rare complication. Tama po, no? Kasi nakikita nga rin po na report po ito sa mRNA vaccine. So dahil po may mga chemo drugs po na nagkukos po ng pericarditis, nagkukos po ng myocarditis, kailangan po malayo po yung bakuna dun sa chemo. So may bakuna po tulad ng doxorubicin na binibigay po sa leukemia, sa bone tumor, no, binibigay din po sa lymphoma. Pag ganun po, dapat maghihintay po ng at least 1 linggo. At saka dapat maganda po ang puso, hindi natamaan ng chemo. Yung mga cytarabine po, ito po yung nasa mga leukemia, AML, kailangan po maghintay ng 4 na linggo. At ito pong targeted treatment na immune checkpoint inhibitors, mga 6 to 8 weeks po. Next slide po. Thank you. So, syempre po, may mga chemotherapy po na talagang dideplete niya po o nababawasan niya po yung ating antibodies at yung ating lymphocyte that produce antibodies. So, pagbibigyan po natin sila ng bakuna, kahit na anong bakuna, hindi tatalab. So, kailangan po yung mga nakakuha po ng chemotherapy tulad ng rituximab, which is pinapatay niya po yung mga B lymphocytes, maghihintay po ng 6 na buwan minimum bago po bigyan ng COVID-19 vaccination. Yung mga na-transplant po, maghihintay ng 2 to 3 months. Next slide. Thank you. Now, yung pong mRNA vaccines po, meron po silang component na PEG, polyethylene glycol, because dito po nilalagay yung nanoparticles ng vaccine. So may mga chemotherapy rin po kami na may PEG, although hindi pa po ito FDA approved, pero nabibili po through other companies, no? For use in leukemia patients. Standard of care na po ito sa Amerika. Pag ang bata po ay may allergy sa PEG at bibigyan po siya ng mRNA vaccine sa may PEG, maaari po talaga magkaroon sila ng significant na allergic reaction. So kailangan po, recommendation po ay bigay po ito sa ospital. Next slide, please. Tapos po, ang recommendation po ng American CDC is, and recommendation po, for example, itong Italian group of pediatric hematologists and oncologists, is that there should be a third mRNA vaccine booster for immunocompromised patients, cancer patients, and then of course, yung family members po nila na according to national guidelines are eligible for the booster, they should also get the booster shot. Next slide. Thank you. So to conclude po, I hope na napakita ko po sa inyo ang urgency po. Bakit po mga batang may cancer ay dapat po natin talagang bigyan ng COVID-19 vaccination dahil po sila po ay at risk for severe COVID and complications. Pangalawa po napuputol po ang gamutan po nila sa cancer at increased at dahil dito baka po sila mag-relapse kaagad. Yung COVID-19 vaccination with booster recommendation po sa mga bata pong may cancer. And even though ginagawa pa lang talaga ang national guidelines natin for vaccination, marami na pong mga iba-ibang societies at iba-ibang national working groups na may recommendations na po na fina-follow na po namin. And napaka-importante po, ang timing po ng pagbabakuna sa batang may cancer po ay dapat personalize at discuss sa inyong pong mga doktor. So maraming salamat po sa inyong attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trish. Maraming salamat po at hindi na po namin na cover yan, especially in our past webinars, but very thankful that you shine a light, especially for those na mga bata po na meron pong sakit na cancer at paano po ba yung maybe strategy, especially mga magulang na medyo takot po na magpabakuna dahil nga po may sakit na yung kanilang mga anak. So maraming salamat po. Dr. Susie?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tricia. It's really quite refreshing to take a deep dive, Raymond, into a group of kids with very special needs, no? And I know that during the pandemic kasi parang una muna, di ba, yung COVID muna. Pero paano naman yung mga may sakit na kailangan ng tulong? So it's really great. Thank you so much, Tricia. That was so enlightening, no? Maraming salamat. Okay, so our next speaker, nako, paborito nyo to, hindi lang dahil sa webinar na to, pero dahil kilala nyo po siya, no? And we were very happy to have her on the webinar. I don't know when, Raymond, no? Maybe a year ago? Or
I think that was last year, yes.
Yeah, last year, no? And in fact, she said, alam niyo yung ating person on the street, dati nasa gitna ng program natin yun eh. Sabi niya, pag nagkakwento tayo, dapat sa simula pa lang, nakukuha na natin yung audience, kaya nilipat namin yung person on the street to the opening, and she was right, no? Okay, so let me just introduce, no? Someone you know very well because she's a very well-known broadcast journalist, and she also covered the health beat for a long time on one of the major networks. Pero kilala po siya dahil siya ay isang mami, at siya po ay magbibigay sa atin ng perspektibo ng mga nanay. No, kasi tayong mga nasa frontline, syempre, alam na natin yung mga kailangan sabihin. Pero ito naman, pakinggan natin yung pananaw ng isang nakakaalam naman, pero merong mga pangamba. So I'd like to welcome back to our webinar, Nina Corpus. Nina, welcome to the webinar.
Hello, good afternoon, Dr. Susie, Dr. Raymond, and all the doctors who are here with us today. Thank you for having me again. Maraming salamat po. I'm here to talk about my experience bilang isang ina. So some of you may know I have 3 kids. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So I'm a mom to 3 young kids under the age of 12. So doon kami papasok sa 5 to 11-year-old pagdating sa COVID vaccines. No? Like most parents with young kids, you know, I was very, very concerned about the COVID vaccine. Siguro mas madali sa akin kung teenager yung anak ko, pero you know, despite all I knew, despite covering the health beat for a long time and interviewing all the experts, I was still, at the end of the day, conflicted as a parent. Hindi pa rin ako 100% pagdating sa pagbabakuna ng aking mga anak. Okay, I just wanted to ask kung nakikita nyo ba ako sa screen o ako ba yung
We can see you.
Yes, we can see you.
We can see you on the screen, Nina.
Screen ko. Okay. Nag-freeze. Pero okay, that's good that you can see
Okay
me.
ka na. Okay ka na, Nina. Okay ka na.
So can you imagine, di ba? Ako, I would say na health advocate na ako, nag-i-interview na ako ng experts, pero minsan pag tinanong ko yung mga doctor friends ko na may mga batang anak like me, mga below 12, hindi rin sila ganun confident. Hindi ko na i-mention that, you know, kung yung mga doktor na kaibigan ko, hindi ganun ka-confident, how much more yung mga ordinary parents like us, hindi ba? So, pero, maintindihan mo kasi in the case of COVID, everything is so new. So, nobody knew all the answers. And we had to make a firm decision based on uncertainty. So, this is my experience no, as a parent. It was a question of, sabi nga ng isa ko pang doctor friend, ang dami kong doctor friend, sabi niya, do you want them to get just the spike protein or the whole virus? Sabi niya, I'd get the spike protein any day. So kumbaga tinatanong niya, anong gusto mo, parte lang ba ng virus na yan? O na makukuha mo sa bakuna, no? O gusto mong magka-COVID, makukuha mo lahat ng virus na yon. Siyempre, mas gusto natin makuha yung lesser evil, di ba? Yung iba naman may ganitong pag-iisip na actually pumasok rin to sa isipan ko, I will not deny it, na yung iba, nagka-COVID na yung anak ko, nagka-COVID na ako, immune na ako, di ba? Hindi na ako magpapabakuna. Pero di ba nakakarinig rin tayo ng mga istorya na yung ibang tao nagkaka-COVID, hindi lang naman isang beses, pwede kang magka-COVID ulit. So yun yung mga possibilities na nasa isipan ko. So it was really at the end of the day, I had to weigh ano ba talaga yung mas beneficial para sa aking mga anak despite all the uncertainties. So I'll just share a video of how it went for us, for my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old na recently last month, I think, nagpabakuna against COVID sa kanilang school. So let me just share yung experience nila. Panoodin natin tong video kung saan nagpabakuna sila na parang may birthday party. Wait, I'll just press play. Ready? Deep breath on 3. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. That's good. You're done. Congratulations. How was that? Good? Good. Deep breath. 1, 2, 3. And... Okay, that was very fast. Yes, you're done. Good. Done. No, Emily, you cannot give your lollipop. What did you get, Emily? A lollipop? So that was our experience.
we saw all that. As you can see, it was a very pleasant experience for my kids who were also very scared, syempre, going in there kasi nga, anything na injection related naman, di ba? But when they got there, everybody was very welcoming, everybody was smiling, yung mga nag-a-usher, naka-headband ng ng mga animals, ganyan, and they played music videos and all that. So at least kahit papano, my kids and I as a parent felt better going in there, and I felt that I was doing the right thing. So in my experience, after our vaccination, my kids were fine. They did not have any of those side effects, except na sumakit lang yung arm nila dun sa area where it was injected. But they went about their usual activities, takbo dito, takbo doon. So it was really nothing, parang wala. So it gave me more confidence once again kasi nga I saw what happened during and then after, and then of course lahat tayo sabi nga natin uncertain future, but siguro what can we do, diba? We have to continue living with COVID, and for me right now as a parent, I think it's really the best decision, the best choice for me to vaccinate the adults and of course our kids. So that's it. That's my experience as a mom of young kids. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. That's wala. Oh. Teka. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So, Raymond, ikaw muna. Ikaw muna, Raymond. Nakakatuwa. Sige.
Well, just really appreciative of the fact that Nina was able to share something a bit more personal. When we were trying to go ahead and plan for this webinar, we heard that there were, well, not just the information gathered, but more personal in terms of having children that have had COVID. There was still necessary for them to be vaccinated. So, and along with all of the information that was gathered. So thank you for sharing that with all of our audience members here for this webinar, Nina.
Okay. So maraming salamat Nina. Ang cute naman, ano. In fact, one of our participants, Raymond, is saying that sa DepEd, may I request for IEC materials video clips that we can use in our vaccination campaign for DepEd. So
Okay.
we'll ask Nina if she's willing to share that, and also our materials, Raymond. No, so
Right.
speaking of our materials, we are now. So Nina, una, thank you so much. No, napaunlakan mo kami. We know you're very busy, but our audience loves you. You're gonna see they really like you. So you're gonna see in the chat. Okay. So
Sir, I will share this video if it would help the public.
yeah.
Yes.
Oo, salamat.
Anak kong
Naku,
isa.
salamat.
Ang
Yeah.
tapos na, no?
Yeah. Thanks. Nina. You're part of our community, so please share, no? Okay. So we're gonna ask our guests to open their videos. So Anna, Trisha, Nina, Benny. I don't know if Diding is still here.
Still
Yes, she's still
here.
here.
Talk
Still
soon.
here.
Great. Okay, so everyone open your videos because we're going to do a panel discussion. But Raymond is going to introduce our information campaign materials. Go ahead, Raymond.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. Before we go into our Q&A session, we'll be taking a very quick break. And you've already seen this is part of our special public service announcement for today.
Maaari na bang magpabakuna ang mga batang 5 hanggang 11 taong gulang?
Oo, nagsimula ito noong Pebrero.
Nagpapakuna na ba kayo?
Oo, nagpapakuna na kami.
Kaya mga bata, magpapakuna na kayo.
Stay safe and stay well. Mga bata, magpasama na sa Bakuna Center. Thank you so much, TVUP. The COVID Communication Public Service Announcement is one of the many creative outputs of the Stop COVID Deaths webinar team to push for the pediatric COVID-19 vaccination for children age 5 and up. We hope you can share this message to everyone po, no? Lalo po yung mga magulang, mga guardians po, mga nag-aalaga po ng mga bata, so that they have more information with regards to protecting the children against COVID-19. Dr. Susie?
Yeah, i-share natin, Raymond, kay taga-DepEd din. Nakita mo ba yan?
Yes, Joyce, I think was the name.
Joyce.
We'll search for that.
Okay, we'll send you the materials, Joyce. Bahala na si Raymond. Okay, so we have everyone on the panel now. And first of all, I'd like to thank everyone. This has really been such a informative session. And we do have some time, about 10 minutes or so, to have a little bit of a discussion. And I think, Raymond, the presentations were all very good. And maybe what we should do is pick up some of the questions that are in the Q&A or the chat box. Raymond, what do you have?
Well, I'll pick one, the one that Dr. Anna has indicated she wants to answer live. And this is from Mercedes. Who has been volunteering as a screener in LGU vaccination sites. And she's really appreciative of the communications being done by Dr. Anna, especially on how to deal with patients' anxieties and misinformation. And she has been asked by patients and parents of those patients. There was I hope I'm reading this correctly. There's an ex-undersecretary who had a 17-year-old child but died recently. And ang tinuturo pong dahilan ay ang COVID-19 vaccine for this unfortunate incident. So, her question would be, how should she or how would she answer the question, just to be able to explain it a bit better po to the patient and patient's parents po. Dr. Anna.
Yeah. Thanks, Raymond, for picking that question up. Actually, ang hirap kasing sagutin sa chat. Ang daming mga side issues na kailangan himay-himayin dito. So siguro at the most superficial level, unang-una, we acknowledge that there is such a report. It's actually been discussed already by the Regional AEFI Committee. It is now with the National AEFI Committee. And as I mentioned, yung Causality Assessment ang mahalaga dyan eh. Hindi natin sinasabi na lahat na nangyayari after mabakunahan ay kasalanan ng bakuna. Pero kung nangyayari siya very near the time na nabakunahan ka, syempre iisipin mo, it's a possibility. And therefore, the role of these AEFI committees is to try to figure out, may causality nga ba? Dapat bang isipin na galing to sa bakuna or nagkataon lang? So nandoon yan ngayon. So that's something we can communicate with our patients. Now, pangalawa, siguro kung bibigyan na lang natin ng, let's assume the worst case scenario at talagang related sa vaccine, no? Paano natin to sasagutin? Tandaan natin na itong binibigay natin sa mga bata, yung tinatawag na mRNA vaccines, halos wala itong association dun sa phenomenon ng blood clots or bleeding. Kaya nga medyo hirap silang himayin, no? Itong kasong ito kasi, unfortunately, yung nangyari dito sa batang to, it was really more of a bleeding disorder, no? Hindi yung myocarditis. So parang kung iisipin natin, medyo malayo yata Hindi naman natin inaasahan itong mga Pfizer vaccines or Moderna vaccines na magiging cause ng bleeding. Most of the time, kung meron man na ipapakitang adverse event na very severe, it's really the myocarditis, and hindi naman yun yung nakita dito sa ating pasyente. Pangatlo, let's say na lang na masyado namang swertehin tong batang ito at talagang galing sa bakuna. Again, no, yung konsepto na very rare, with the chances you actually getting myocarditis is less than the chance of being hit by lightning. No, may ganoon yan, may mga ganung klaseng comparisons. And of course, ilan ba kakilala natin sa talambuhay natin nang natamaan na ng kidlat? Parang wala pa naman yata. No? So siguro, sobrang swerte mo na kung matamaan ka rin ng mga severe adverse events. So it's just really to show na the adverse events are being recognized. In this particular case, medyo parang there's a real question about talaga bang galing sa bakuna kasi tinitignan pa. Medyo it's out of the ordinary from what has been shared in the literature. And even if we make the worst case assumption at related siya, the events are really very rare. Now, if you'll allow me, balikan ko lang yung shinare ni Nina kanina. I find it so interesting kasi because she was highlighting several aspects na I think we might want to discuss also in the panel, no? Yung nabanggit niya na siguro kung teenager na mas kaya niyang magdesisyon kaysa sa maliit na bata. I think I'd like to explore that. So may diferensya nga ba kung teenager at saka smaller kids? Tapos yung nabanggit niyang example na may mga kinausap siyang doctors and the doctors are also medyo iffy about vaccination. So that's also something that's very important to highlight. Di ba sinasabi natin, healthcare worker recommendation is one of the driving forces for a positive vaccine uptake. So tayo bilang healthcare workers dito sa audience na to, we need to be able to, with confidence, na make these recommendations. Kailangan na intindihan natin yung bakuna. And then yung nabanggit niya kanina, yung feeling na she was doing the right thing, no? I think one of the things that really resonate with parents is ayokong maging kasalanan ko dahil dinesisyonan ko yung pagkapahamak ng anak ko dahil nabakunahan siya. Siyempre, sino ba namang magulang ang may gustong mangyari nun, no? So it's a question of, are you more comfortable with an error of omission, hindi ko dinesisyonan, or an error of commission, nagdesisyon na ako at may nangyari. Pero tandaan natin, our deciding not to vaccinate is also a decision to increase the risk of our kids getting sick. Diba? Iniwasan nga natin yung desisyon para magpabakuna, pero naging desisyon yon para itaas ang risk na magkasakit ang ating anak. So, paano tayo magdidesisyon ng ganyan? Parehong may risk. Kaya I think yung sinabi niya in the end na I felt I was doing the right thing. No? Parang she went through that process and maybe it will help if we surface that to the patients that we talk to help them process it at makagawa ng magandang decision. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Let's get a quick reaction from Tricia and from Benny and also from Nina on what Anna just said. So Benny, ano ang reaction mo doon sa sinasabi ni Anna about the doctors who are iffy? No, kasi ano yan no, parang tama si Anna no, parang actually kung anong sasabihin ng healthcare worker, ang laki-laki ng impact nyo Pag may sinabi kayong konting duda, times 100 yun sa utak ng pasyente. So go ahead, Benny, let's talk about that.
Yes, I will share the picture of my patient kasi this patient kasi is a 10-year-old na with history of a patient with congenital hydrocephalus, dextroscoliosis, severe dextroscoliosis. Tapos after 3 years, ngayon lang pumunta sa akin kasi 2 years daw nagtago sa bahay kasi natatakot. Ngayon lahat sila vaccinated na. Itong 10-year-old na pasyente ko na after the operation, wala siyang ang galing-galing niya. Wala siyang nararamdaman, wala siyang maintenance kasi may BP siya. And then, ang nakakatuwa, bakit magbabakuna na siya? Kasi nakita po kayo sa TV, tapos yung inyong poster sa Philippine Pediatric Society, na inganyo siya. Siya mismo ang nagsasabi sa parents niya kasi sila lahat vaccinated na, siya nilang hindi. Nakakatuwa kasi sila yung pumupunta sa clinic at saka naiinganyo. Sabi pa niya, pwede ko bang i-post yung picture niya? Sabihin ko na siya pasyente ko na nakasurvive siya sa hydrocephalus na may patient siya na walang complication. Tuwan-tuwa sila kasi yung bang inano nila yung utang na loob nila sa akin na na-diagnose siya na hydrocephalus, tapos na ngayon siya na magaling siya kahit despite na meron siyang scoliosis yung ganun, magaling siya ng bata yung in spite na ganun. Yung trust nila sa doktor, tapos sabi pa nga nila iano ko sa mga pasyente ko, sabi niya, sa mga kamag-anak nila. Kaya nagpupunta sila sa akin, even yung walang comorbidities, nagpapagawa pa ng certificate ng ganun. May i-share naman kung okay lang sa inyo, yung dalawa naman wala namang comorbidities. This video naman kasi is automatic, tinanong ko lang kasi after 2 years na hindi po pumunta sa clinic, nagpa-vaccine naman sila ng flu at saka hepatitis A. Then tinanong ko lang. Yan, this is 5-year-old patient.
What do you know about the vaccine?
I know that the vaccine protects you from diseases and viruses.
Yes, diseases and viruses. Do you want to be vaccinated with COVID-19 vaccine?
Yes, because first, I don't want to die. Second, I'm afraid to die. Third, I am too young to die.
What else?
Is it all about dying? No, but
Then the second video is the brother 7-year-old. Tingnan yung difference.
You are
yung
here to
yan.
be vaccinated today. What is the importance of vaccination?
so that I don't catch the disease.
What else?
And you don't catch the
How do you know about the vaccine?
YouTube.
YouTube.
Yes.
What it says?
It says the vaccine is filled with weaker viruses, and it helps find the virus. Wait, I think I forgot it. I watched that 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
Yes.
Do you want to be vaccinated with COVID-19 vaccine?
Yes.
Yes? Why?
I don't want to get sick and die. Yes, I'm.
Cute
Yan,
naman
yung
niya,
nakakatuwa
Jenny.
kasi,
You're so
kasi
cute,
nakakatuwa kasi hindi siya scripted. Talagang galing sa kanya tinanong sa mother.
Oo.
Wala, hindi daw. Sabi niya, hindi daw naman niya tinanong, nakita lang sa YouTube. Sabi ko, tama. Buti yung tamang information nakita niya sa YouTube.
Ang galing,
Ito,
ano?
5 and 7-year-old, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Benny. Thank you. That's very, very cute. Ay, naku, I want to hug these kids. Teka, Diding is here. Before we go to Nina, we're going to ask Diding also has been seeing patients. And then we go to Patricia. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to continue kung ano sinabi ni Doc Benny, yung nakita sa YouTube. Tapos yun nga, to my surprise, ito nga, let me start off with the families, diba? The families that you are with. I belong kasi to a very big family, 11 siblings kami. So I thought that our messenger group would say na, sige, go na to your LGUs for the COVID vaccine. So I share information there and all. And sometimes I have this, we talk about communication skills, diba? Akala ko na nasabi ko na sa kanila, But one thing I've learned when I encountered my nephew for a well child visit, napabakuna na ba kayo? Hindi pa nga auntie eh. So, parang I felt a little bit guilty. Sabi ko, oh my, hindi ko pa pala siya talagang napaliwanag ng husto. So it is upon myself, that me as a healthcare provider, as a clinician, we don't presume that everyone is understanding what is circulating around. And did you know why they don't like to be vaccinated? May nakita lang sila sa Facebook na story na video ng isang ina. Ayan anak, mag-Jollibee tayo kasi magpabakuna ka na. O di, nag-celebrate muna sila na una. Pagkatapos noon, or baliktad, I'm not really quite sure na, biglang na ospital ang anak, 7-year-old. So sabi, pinost ng pamangkin ko, auntie, this is the one that I saw. One episode of a social media circulation, it scared my relative very much.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Trisha. And that's why our ability to convince with the face-to-face discussion, or whether it's a telehealth discussion, na actually the healthcare workers have a lot more influence than social media, but we have to use our influence. Okay, so let's go to Trisha, and then I'm gonna go to Nina. Okay, Trisha, ikaw, ano experience mo naman?
Ako naman, yung mga cancer survivors na patients ko na hindi ko na nakikita, hindi ko follow sa clinic. Suddenly, tumatawag na lang kasi gusto nga nila na check up bago sila magpa-COVID vaccine. But ang na-realize ko with this talk and trying to study for this talk, is that we really need to empower and provide strategies for the pediatric oncologists, hematologists, so that they can have their patients vaccinated. Alam niyo po, walang social distancing sa mga vaccination sites. And a cancer patient na immunocompromised, you don't want to go to that area na may mga hundreds, But there is a way and there's a strategy. When we ask our families dito sa PGH about the vaccination, takot pa sila. So I think with Ma'am Anna's help, we can do something for our patients dito and then try to empower yung Society of Pediatric Oncology and Hematology, how we can promote this as our advocacy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tricia. Ninya, can you address this issue about nasabi na natin pero hindi pala it didn't sink in? Alam mo yan? Kasi parang minsan naiisip natin na basta't nasabi ng minsan, yun na yun, diba? Can you talk about that, Ninya? You're an expert communicator. Paulit-ulit kailangan, diba?
Okay. Actually, Doktora, that's true. Paulit-ulit kahit minsan makulit na. Although minsan, depende rin po sa strategy. Baka minsan nakukulitan na rin yung mga tao. And then minsan, depende rin sa approach. Kasi alam ko na yan eh. Pero alam mo, I still have uncertainty as a parent. And could you please acknowledge these feelings that I have? It can't be, wag kang matakot. Takot ako eh. So parang sa bata din, like when my kids feel uncertainties or they feel scared, I don't brush it off right away and say, ako ang tama. So I tell them, your feelings are not bad. It's totally legitimate for you to have feelings of uncertainty or kung takot ka, it's fine. But let me explain to you why you need to do this. So matalino naman yung mga bata. Minsan na-underestimate natin sila. Yung anak ko nung in-explain kung paano nag-work yung COVID vaccine, nagulat nga ako eh. Parang doktor kung mag-explain. So, sabi ko, saan mo naman natutunan yan? Hindi ka naman nakinig ng webinar namin. Sa school. So I also want to thank the schools for doing a great job. The teachers, kasi malaki rin yung influence ng school. Yung teachers when they talk to the students. So I also appreciated na yung school nagkaroon rin ng initiative na bigyan ng going open yung vaccination to the students and even to the siblings, who wanted to do it there in that setting. So, na-appreciate ko yung mga ganon. Tsaka also yung mga frontliners din na nagkikwento rin sila sa akin, ako nagkasakit na rin ako, yung anak ko nagkaganyan. Parang na-acknowledge rin nila yung may mga minsan talaga may side effects naman talaga, di ba, for some people. So at least it makes it more human for us. Ewan ko, I don't know, but kasi we're not doctors eh. We're not naman in the medical field, but we're parents. We have all these feelings. And sometimes it would also be nice that those feelings are recognized. And then, we will listen naman to the experts, of course. And syempre, beware of fake news. Yun talaga kalaban mo. Pag may isang nag-post talaga dyan, na katulad po yung kinuwento kanina, I have not seen that video, but I always tell my friends and, my peers, the other moms who would also ask me, kasi nga, they know I interview doctors, huwag kayong maniwala sa mga fake news na yan. Tingnan nyo kung saan nanggagaling. Isang tao lang yan. Against ilan ba yung nagpabakuna? Million na po yung nagpabakuna. So tama si Doktora kanina, ano ba yung chance na matamaan ka ng kidlat? Ganun yung maganda yung may mga ganung references para lalong maintindihan, lalo na po sa mga barangay, sa mga communities. Nagulat ako, marami pa rin pong hindi nagpapabakuna. Kunyari yung anak ng mananahi ko or yung mananahi ko hindi pa nagpapabooster kasi natatakot daw siya. So sabi ko, ano ka ba? Mas konti na nga yan, nagpabakuna ka tapos ayaw mo magpa-booster. So yung mga ganun ba, meron pa rin kahit na nagpabakuna na sila, yung iba, natatakot naman magpa-booster. So, meron pa rin ganung mga feelings out there that I guess we need to be aware of para ma-explain po natin sa kanila. Tsaka, disclaimer lang yung kanina na sinabi ko yung mga doktor, baka akala yung doktor ko, hindi po yung pedya ko nagsabi na uncertain siya, no? Some of my very close friends lang na open sa amin na oo nga eh. Tao rin naman sila. Oo. Pero pinabakunahan naman nila yung anak nila. Tsaka doktor sila. Sila rin nagsabi na mas advantageous naman. Napapakuna may anak mo. Pero bilang magulang, dalawa kasi yun eh. Doktor sila, pero magulang din sila. So meron din silang parang conflicting emotions. So, and these are my very good friends. So, sa akin lang sasabihin, hindi naman nila ako pasyente or hindi nila pasyente yung mga anak ko. Siyempre yung doktor, sasabihin nila yung ano talaga, yung tama, na ginawa rin naman nila. So, yun lang po. Kasi yun yung pedyo.
That's good. Anna, did you want to respond to that?
Yes,
Anna,
yes. Oo.
Go ahead.
I just really wanted to pick up on Nina's point eh. Hi Nina, long time no see. Pero yung sinasabi mo, di ba, we don't want to devalue the anxiety and worry that people have. Kasi ano ba naman talaga, 2 taon pa lang naman natin kilala tong mikrobyong to. Sino bang nakarinig ng COVID before 2020? Tapos biglang sasabihin natin ngayon, kailangan mo magpabakuna. Parang diba? Medyo mapapaisip ka talaga. And we're not brushing these worries aside. They're very legitimate, no? I think yung challenge lang talaga sa mga clinicians is una, talagang responsibility natin yung maging maalam, di ba? Kasi tayo magko-communicate ng information eh. Parang no excuse na hindi natin to alam. Kailangan well-versed tayo. Tapos siguro, in the same way that we ask our patients to look for reliable information, tayo re-enroll din natin yun. Maghanap tayo ng reliable information for ourselves and to share. And then, yung nabanggit mo, Nina, about the healthcare workers, communicating with you on the level of we're friends, I'm sharing this anxiety with you. That's totally acceptable kasi syempre lahat din naman ganun din naman ang pinagmulan nating tanong, di ba? Parang mali naman yata kung di tayo nagtanong kung mabisa ba yan, ligtas ba yan. Parang hindi naman tayo basta tatanggap na lang. And I think it's really very important for us to be active in terms of getting this information, processing it, understanding it, and of course, making sure what we get is very reliable. So, challenging, di ba? Challenging talaga.
Thank you, Anna. You know, I wish we had more time, but we don't have any more time. I just wanted to have a little bit of a rejoinder. Thank you, Nina, for reminding us about that, because essentially it's about people's feelings, right? So sometimes it's not just the explanation, but I think what Nina is saying is sometimes patients just really want to be heard. No? Parang, and that's why she said acknowledge it. Na parang wag niyong parang wag nating sasabihin na, hindi, okay na yan. Tama yung kay Nina. I like that. And that means that we're dealing with people with emotions, with feelings. And I think Anna's correct, right? If we don't have a doubt, that's probably something wrong, right? Because all of us have had doubts about this. All of us. Huwag tayong magsasabi na wala tayong duda. Lahat tayo nagkaduda. Pati yung apo ko nung babakunahan, nagkaroon ako ng duda eh. Diba? Parang this is a very normal reaction. This is a very unusual time in our history. And so people have feelings, and I think we just need to acknowledge it. But unfortunately, we have to wrap up. And Raymond, we need to answer the questions on the fan survey. Go ahead, Raymond.
Okay, thank you so much. Can we have it also on Menti para makita rin po ng ating mga thank you so much. For our first question, which COVID-19 vaccines can be given to the children? I will call on Dr. Anna, although kung nakinig po kayo, malaman nyo po yung paulit-ulit po na bakuna, type ng bakuna na nabanggit po niya. Dr. Anna?
Ang tanong kanina is which COVID vaccines can be given to children? And ang tamang sagot na sinagot naman ng mas marami sa ating mga nanonood ay yung Pfizer vaccine. So siguro let me just qualify, no, sa ngayon meron yang EUA from 5 and up. Baka may mga nakarinig na may EUA na rin ang Sinovac para doon sa 6 and up, no. So sana maging parte na rin siya ng programa. So the correct answer is Pfizer. Yung 11% na Sinovac, I acknowledge, baka medyo up-to-date talaga kayo sa sa balita at alam ninyong may EUA na, so malapit na rin sana siyang maisama sa programa.
Thank you, Dr. Anna. For our second question, dapat pa bang pabakunahan ang mga batang nagka-COVID-19 na? Overwhelmingly po, 95% at least in Zoom and 98% po sa Menti chose po na yes, which is essentially po na message na rin naman po natin for this webinar. So, alam din po namin na karamihan po sa inyo ay medyo busy po, no, sa inyong mga schedule, and something really that we have prepared beforehand are yung tinatawag po nating SCD shorts. Yun po ay talagang very very easy to consume. Maikli lang po siya ng mga videos, snippets po siya ng aming mga messages, important messages for each of the webinars that we have had in the past. And then finally, as all of our speakers are trying to gather their thoughts, we have on the screen our evaluation poll. Doon pwede po sa evaluation poll po natin, especially for those na makakita po sa atin dito po sa Zoom. I hope you're able to see it in the Zoom po, no? Maybe we could launch it so that everyone can see it. Okay, thank you. May mga sumasagot na po sa ating evaluation poll. It's a 4-point Likert scale. We have 5 questions here. And ulitin ko lang po, wala po kami hiwalay na isiniset aside or ini-email po na evaluation po. Ito lang po yung meron po tayo. So we hopefully you'll be able to join and input your feedback for this webinar with the following statements. The panelists demonstrated thorough knowledge of the topic. Number 2, the panelists were well prepared and organized. Number 3, the panelists spoke clearly and audibly. Number 4, panelists use appropriate language with technical medical jargons adequately explained. And finally, the panelists contributed to new perspectives and knowledge on managing various key COVID-19 health issues. We will not be closing this evaluation poll until the end of the webinar as we move on to the final messages from our speakers. Dr. Susie.
Thank you very much. And we're at the top of the hour, Raymond. So we're going to ask our panelists to give us just a short message to our audience. Maikli lang kasi magko-closing na po tayo. But anong pabaon yung mensahe sa kanila? So let's start with our veteran broadcast journalist, Nina Corpus. Nina, go ahead.
Meron pa pala, Doc. Well, ang masasabi ko lang, alam natin na merong mga uncertainties, meron talagang wala namang talagang 100% na vaccine kahit anong vaccine pa yan. But especially now dahil COVID nga is very, very new. But you know, we all have to live. I said it earlier, we have to continue living. And the best way for me right now as a parent to live, in a more safe environment for me and my family is to have my kids vaccinated. It's a choice that I made. And I think it's best for my children. So I hope yung mga parents ko na nagdududa ngayon or meron pa rin mga agam-agam, naramdaman ko rin po yun. Pero wala po akong pagsisisi na napabakunahan ko yung mga anak ko. At pagdating ng panahon na babakunahan na rin yung isa ko pag nag-5 na siya, no, kasi 4 pa lang siya ngayon, I think mas confident na rin ako. Tsaka marami rin namang nang pumapasok na mga bagong impormasyon like Dr. Anna kanina mentioned, no, na very, very little adverse effects naman talaga as they've seen. So I believe her, she's the expert. Hindi ako makikinig sa sinabi ng kapitbahay, sinabi ng tita o ng pinsan, hindi naman po sila mga experts. So doon po tayo makinig sa experts tulad po dito. So maraming salamat for having this webinar for all of us. It's really very helpful po kaya mabuhay po kayo.
Thank you very much, Nina Corpus. Let's go to Dr. Trisha. Trish, ikaw, anong message mo?
Well, ang message ko as part of my advocacy is about for our children with cancer na huwag pong matakot ang mga magulang, huwag pong matakot ang mga bata. Tulong po ng mga doktor, makakaplano po tayo paano po kayo bigyan ng bakuna ng maayos. Thank you po.
Okay, thanks a lot. Anna.
I'd like to address the healthcare workers in the audience. No, tandaan natin napakalaki ng role natin bilang tagapaghatid ng information, and marami tayong makakausap, ma-engage, no, na mga nag-aalala pa rin hanggang ngayon tungkol sa bakuna for themselves, for their families. And it's our role, no, to make sure that we have the right information so we can communicate this information. And then, trabaho din natin yung alamin, ano pa ang dinadala sa atin ng ating mga kausap? Ito ba ay knowledge gap or trust issue? Kung knowledge gap, madaling sagutin, di ba? Bibigyan lang natin sila ng information. Pero kung issue ng trust, nagdududa sila sa sistema o doon sa pagtanggap ng bakuna, medyo ito kailangan nating trabahuhin. At bilang healthcare worker, all of us have a role, no, to show that the intrinsic motives of the healthcare system, ano ba naman, kundi tumulong sa mga nangangailangan. And hindi magiging intensyon ng healthcare system or ng sino mang health worker na mamahamak ng pasyente. So doon tayo nagsisimula at lahat ng desisyon natin nakaangkla doon. So sana, no, magtiwala sila na ginagawa natin lahat ng dapat gawin para makasiguro na sila ay ligtas.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anna. Let's go to Benny, Dr. Benny Atienza of the PMA. Benny, go ahead.
Yes. The whole Philippine Medical Association na binubuo po kami ng more than 88,000 na doktor ay nakikiisa po sa ating pagpapakuna ng ating mga kabataan at sinasabi po natin safe po ang mga bakuna, dumaan po sa HTAC, sa DOH, sa ating pong FDA. At sinusigurado po namin at sinabi ko kanina na ang lahat po ng vaccination centers na pinupuntahan ay may doktor doon as a screener, vaccinator at saka monitors po. At inaasahan po namin na lahat po ng ating mga kababayan, yung ating mga magulang ay papukunahan ang ating mga anak kasi nandiyan na po yung bakuna, hindi po tayo katulad ibang county na wala bakuna. Nandiyan na po, yung sabi po namin, nandiyan ang bakuna, magpabakuna na po at sinasabi po natin palagi na matakot sa COVID, wag po sa bakuna.
Thank you very much, Benny. And Diding, the final word from you.
Thank you, Dr. Susie. I'd like to say to our audience na we live in a beautiful world. So, ang incentive dapat natin is gusto ko pang mabuhay. Katulad ng sinabi ng pasyente ni Dr. Benny, I don't wanna die. Sabi niya, so cute, di ba? And so, maybe na we cannot stop COVID, but we have a role. Each one of us would have a role. So, let's do it. Let's have our children vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Dr. Diding Clemente-Morada. And we are going now to our final summary, which is from the Deputy Director of the Philippine General Hospital. We are going to welcome back Stella, Marie. Ayan, nakalimutan ko na naman, no? Jose.
Lagi na naaalala yung Legazpi.
Sanay ako sa Legazpi eh. Sige, okay, go ahead, Stella.
Okay. No, it's a very enlightening webinar. No, talagang ang gagaling ng speakers. They're all excellent speakers, all of them. No, so I'll just make a short summary of what was said. Why should children be vaccinated? First of all, protection against the COVID-19, protection against severe COVID-19. Also, we have to remember the impact of the new variants. No, it's also protection against the what we call long COVID. Now, when we vaccinate children, it also contributes to reducing community transmission, avoidance of isolation, quarantine, school activities, school closures, and other indirect harms of lockdown. No? Talagang ang ating education system nag-weaken talaga dyan sa time of the COVID kasi sobrang effect ng school closure. Also, when we vaccinate our children, there's a faster return to pre-pandemic activity and economic stability. So, ang recommendation ng HTAC, according to Anna, is Pfizer-BioNTech, which is an mRNA vaccine for 5 to 11 years old. Sinovac, an inactivated vaccine for 6 years old and above. Ngayon, she spoke on vaccine efficacy and vaccine effectiveness. Efficacy refers to how the vaccine performs in ideal situations. So these are controlled clinical trials. Now, yung effectiveness naman refers to how the vaccine performs in a wider population. I just like to make a short summary of this one. Yung vaccine efficacy of Pfizer for age 5 to 11 years old is 90.7%. So it is safe, immunogenic, and efficacious. So the conclusion there is that from Anna, she said that 2 doses of the Pfizer mRNA vaccine were highly effective against COVID-19 hospitalization and critical illness. So ang question then, what has been the progress so far? So magugulat kayo na ang dami na palang total doses administered, 141 million. Okay, so the total vaccine deployed is 180 million. So, pero the sad part is the average for the 5 to 11 years old, ang coverage ay nasa 13% pa lang. So, we have to exert more effort to convince the mothers to have their children vaccinated. Ngayon, yung what should we watch out for, sinabi yung mga adverse events na if you think about it, no, yung pain in the vaccination site, rash, pyrexia, dizziness, these are mild symptoms, mild effects, and the benefit certainly outweighs the risk. Yun yung dapat natin tandaan. Ngayon, from Patricia Alcasabas naman, who's a very good Hema-Onco pediatric consultant, ang talagang message niya, huwag natin pabayaan ang cancer patient. If there's one thing that she emphasized, the cancer patients are at risk for COVID-19. No? Makikita nyo na nagkakaroon ng critical illness yung mga cancer patients. So the mortality due to COVID-19 was 3.6%. And in our data, 40 cases of cancer patients, 5% had severe illness, 3% critical that they needed to be intubated, 55 mild, and 37 asymptomatic. Of the 30, ito yung pakinggan nyo, of the 30 patients, cancer patients, dalawa lang ang nakakontinue ng chemotherapy. You know, that's so sad. 28 ang hindi nakapatuloy ng chemotherapy. So their cancer can progress, and that is so sad for each of them. No? So the cancer survivors are also at risk for severe COVID infection. So ang sinasabi ni Trish, COVID-19 vaccination for children with cancer, number one, timing is personalized. Wala tayong like the others na pwede kahit anong oras. The newly diagnosed cancer patient, you should administer the vaccine 2 or more weeks after the initiation of chemotherapy. So hindi siya pwede magkasabay. Leukemia patients have poor immune response to the COVID-19 vaccine. And patients with ongoing therapy, you have to allow them to recover first from the acute organ toxicity due to the chemotherapy. So hindi siya pwedeng parang sunod-sunod na machine. Kailangan may recovery period. Allow the immune system to recover. So dapat din the absence of steroids and infection, of course. And then she also mentioned the risk of myocarditis, of poor antibody response, and the risk for allergic reactions. But again, in isusuma total natin, the benefit outweighs the risk. So, ang conclusion ni Trish is children with cancer are at risk for severe COVID. And there will be yung chemotherapy interruptions, and they should receive also the COVID-19 booster. And the timing of the vaccination should be discussed with the physician, with the personal physician of the patient. Ngayon, natutuwa naman ako kay Miss Nina Corpus. Ang galing ng kanyang video. Bilib ako sa mga anak niya. Anong mas gusto nyo? Yung spike protein o yung whole virus? That is a very funny way of putting it, and people will really remember. Siyempre, ayaw nila yung whole virus niya. Siyempre, that means nagkasakit ka na talaga. So, it is the right decision to have her children vaccinated. Talagang believe ako. And dun sa video that she presented, nakakatulong na yung atmosphere in the school was playful, it was light, parang okay lang. So nakita nyo, walang umiyak sa kanila. And I like her parting words. Ang sabi niya, we have to learn to live with COVID. Yun yung talagang essence of her talk. Thank you very much. Back to you, Susie.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Stella Marie Jose, the Deputy Director of the Philippine General Hospital, for an excellent summary. And next week, nako, be with us next week. Magandang tanong. You know, Raymond and I are monitoring the global events. And when we opened this webinar, I just mentioned that Shanghai is under lockdown. And one of our members said that it's not just Shanghai, there are other cities. So we are monitoring what is happening in the rest of the world so we can give you updated information. So the topic next week, next Friday is, maari pa bang magka-surge ng COVID-19 sa Philippines? O tapos na ba? No, we don't have a crystal ball, but we're going to get very experienced people to give their very honest assessment of this. So be with us, and we'll bring you the best speakers. Over to you, Raymond.
Thank you, Dr. Susie, and thank you for that wonderful recap and closing remarks from Deputy Director Stella Jose. Yung webinar topic po natin next week is really the question that everyone is not asking, pero it's really top of their mind kasi everyone is worrying if we will be reverting back to how we were, especially with China, reverting to their 2020 parang time zone kumbaga, and is that something that is in our horizon. So please do join us next week, but before that we would like to thank the very hardworking team behind the Stop COVID's webinar series. Without each and every one of you, not just for thinking of the topics and choosing the speakers, but really all around effort po at in teamwork with everyone. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. And finally, ang ating pong mga webinars, may nagtanong na po, they are archived immediately after the webinar. Lahat po ito, if you go to www.youtube.com /TVUPPH. You'll be able to see all 93 webinars sa ngayon and then 94 na po right after this webinar. That brings to a close our webinar for this week. Magkita-kita po tayo again next week. Our Friday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. It's a date.
Together we can stop COVID deaths.
So keep safe, keep healthy. See you online!
The enemy remains unseen. I'll keep your hand in mine. Let's say a prayer one more time. I know you long for home, but I am here, you're not alone. I'll stay with you until the coast is clear. The others pain before my fears, the others lives before my tears. But right behind the mask, I look into myself and ask, do I have strength to carry on? My God, how long must this go on? I need you here to keep me strong. I'm here to hold the line. I'll keep my word until my time. Just look into my eyes and say his name to realize it's fine to be afraid. Just hold on to the word he gave. This time will come to pass, 'cause this salvation's made to last. He'll carry you to see the break of day. The others pain before my fears, the others vows before my tears. But right behind the mask, I look into myself and ask, do I have strength to carry on? My God, how long must this go on? I need you here to keep me strong. I'm here to hold the line. I'll keep my word until my time. The others pain before my fears, the others lives before my tears. But right behind the mask, I look into myself and ask, do I have strength to carry on? My God, how long must this go on? I need you here to keep me strong. I'll keep my word, your word is mine. The others pain before my fears, I'm pushing on despite the tears. Please take us through another day. Just hold my hand, I will hold the line. I will hold the